Orbital Gardens, this is Mission Control. We are confirming acquisition of your signal. You are live in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Hello and welcome to Gardeners of the Galaxy, the podcast for all of the sentient beings in the universe who have a passion for plants. I am Emma the Space Gardener and I will be your host as we explore gardening on Earth and beyond. It's 2 years now since I tried to have a series of conversations with the newfangled ChatGPT about space plants. I found that it was a bit dull, had no imagination, wouldn't hypothesize about the future, and, well, couldn't get its facts straight. Since then, my feelings about ChatGPT haven't changed. It's horrible with factual content, making stuff up left, right and centre, and then making up references to back itself up. It's much better than I am at making up clickbait headlines, although I'm not sure that's a good thing. Still, ChatGPT is by no means the only AI in town. I was recently introduced to Google's NotebookLM by astrobotanist Richard Barker, who has just moved to Purdue University to work on LEAF, the project to grow plants on the moon during the Artemis 3 mission, which is awesome. Anyway, NotebookLM is different in that you feed it information. You create a notebook and upload sources, whether that's giving it links to web pages and YouTube videos, linking it up to your Google Docs and slides, or copying and pasting in text from elsewhere. NotebookLM will provide you with a short summary of the information it has ingested, and you can ask it questions. The key point about its answers is that they refer back to the source material. You can click on a citation and it will take you right to the paragraph in question, so you can see that it's not making it up and double check everything. In fact, Google recommends that you do. There's a sentence at the bottom of the page that reads, "NotebookLM can make mistakes, so double check it." NotebookLM even suggests questions you might like to ask, and you can save its responses into notes so that you don't lose them when you exit. The chat tends to reset. The Notebook Guide can generate an FAQ, study guide, table of contents, timeline and briefing doc, and it will add those to your saved notes. And a recent addition creates an audio overview in the form of a podcast in which two AI hosts have a lively discussion about the material you have provided. This feature is only available in English for the moment. And Google notes that the generated discussions are not a comprehensive or objective view of a topic, but simply a reflection of the sources that you've uploaded. I thought I would try it out, and the following conversation is one of those audio overviews created on the topic of the recoverable and reusable Shijian-19 satellite China recently launched and the seeds it took to space.
All right, get ready to explore something incredible: space breeding. We've got this collection of articles all about China sending seeds to space and get this creating brand new, improved crops.
Yeah, it's wild, right? This idea has gone from science fiction to, well, actual science.
Totally. And we're going to break it all down for you.
We'll cover the Shijian-19 mission, the potential this tech has for agriculture.
It could change the future of food.
Yeah, I mean, China has been a pioneer in space breeding for, decades now.
And the Shijian-19 mission, that's a huge step forward, right?
It's huge. Well, look at what makes it so special, why everyone is so interested in it.
Let's start with the basics, the mission itself.
Okay.
Shijian-19 launched September 27th, 2024.
Right.
And it came back to Earth safe and sound on October 11th.
Yep.
I think it's super cool that this was the first launch for this type of satellite, the Shijian series, developed by the China Academy of Space Technology.
Really impressive.
They've basically built a reusable space truck that can haul over 500 kilograms of stuff back and forth.
Think of it like a delivery service for space experiments.
That's a great way to put it.
And in this case, the package was seeds.
Not just any seeds, though.
Oh, definitely not. These were special, chosen for this thing called space breeding.
Okay, so let's break that down.
Right.
How does sending seeds to space lead to, better crops?
Okay, so it's the environment of space. It's unique, right? You've got microgravity and cosmic radiation.
Right.
And those can actually cause changes in the seed's DNA.
Like mutations.
Exactly. Some of those mutations end up being good. So you get plants that might grow faster, produce more food, or even resist disease.
That's amazing.
It's like speeding up evolution.
Focusing on the traits we want.
You got it.
How long have we been doing this?
Oh, it's not a brand new thing.
Okay.
China has actually been a leader in space breeding since, get this, 1987.
Wow.
They've sent up special satellites just for this purpose before.
Really? Like what?
Well, back in 2006, they launched the Shijian-19. That one was specifically designed to carry seeds.
A whole satellite for seeds? That's a statement.
Shows you how seriously they take this.
Totally. What about this Shijian-19?
Yeah.
What kind of seeds did they put on this one?
This is where it gets really interesting. They included a huge variety of seeds.
Oh.
And not just from China, from other countries too.
Huh. Like who?
Well, for example, they sent up 16 different kinds of highland barley and rapeseed.
Those sound very specific.
They were chosen because they could potentially thrive in the tough conditions of, high-altitude plateaus.
Ah, so places where it's already hard to grow stuff.
Exactly. They wanted to improve these crops' resilience in those areas.
That's really smart, thinking ahead like that.
Right. And there's more.
More.
They also sent over 1,000 species of microorganisms up.
Microorganisms? Like what?
Bacteria, fungi, that kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
This opens up possibilities beyond just crops, you see.
Yeah.
And in total, they sent, get this, over 1,800 different types of plant material, representing most major agricultural products. It was amazing.
That's a massive experiment. It feels like more than just a Chinese thing, though.
Well, you're right about that. You mentioned seeds from other countries.
Right.
This mission had seeds from Thailand and Pakistan, just to name a few.
It seems like a very international effort.
It really is. There was even a tweet from a Pakistani official.
Yeah.
They were really excited to be part of this research.
I can imagine. This feels like everyone coming together to tackle this problem of food security.
Yeah, because everyone's going to be affected by it, right?
Exactly.
And the potential benefits of space breeding, they're huge. I mean, we could be talking about bigger crop yield.
To feed a growing population.
Exactly. We could create new varieties that can handle climate change and disease.
It's so important these days.
And we could even make our food more nutritious. Imagine that.
I did read about some space-bred varieties of some staple foods that are resistant to certain starches.
Right.
Could that be a game changer for people with diabetes?
Absolutely. And it goes beyond specific conditions. It's really about creating more diverse, germplasm resources.
Germplasm resources.
It's basically like expanding the genetic toolkit for breeders.
Oh, I see.
More options for developing crops that work in different environments, different needs.
That's fascinating. So we have all these seeds that went to space, came back. What happens next?
Good question.
Are we going to see space barley at the supermarket anytime soon?
Not quite. First, the seeds go through a ton of screening and analysis.
Okay.
Scientists are looking for those beneficial mutations.
Right.
Then they crossbreed them to create new varieties.
So it's a slow process.
It is. It's meticulous, but it's also fascinating.
So space is kind of like a shortcut for innovation.
I like that. A shortcut.
A catalyst, maybe?
Yes. And the real magic happens back here on Earth, in the labs and the fields.
Where scientists and breeders can do their thing. It seems like China is really in it for the long haul with this, aiming for food security, not just for themselves, but for the whole world.
Yeah, their space program is pretty ambitious.
They've got the Tiangong space station going, rovers on Mars, and now they're talking about sending people to the moon.
It's incredible.
It's not just about exploring. They're looking for ways to use space to solve problems here, right?
Absolutely. They've got a huge population to feed.
And they're dealing with the same issues: climate change, limited resources.
It affects everyone.
Okay, we've covered the mission, the science behind space breeding, and China's role.
Yeah.
But what about the bigger picture? How does this fit into the global space race? What about working together with other countries?
Those are great points. And that brings us to some important things to think about,
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting when you think about it like a different kind of space race.
Right. Not just about getting to Mars first.
Exactly. It's about, who can use space to solve problems like right here on Earth.
Problems that affect everyone.
Exactly. And the fact that they included those seeds from Thailand and Pakistan and other countries on Shijian-19, that shows something.
What's that?
That China is open to working with others.
It's
kind of hopeful, even with all the political stuff going on.
Yeah.
Countries can still work together when it comes to science.
Especially when it's something as important as food security.
Absolutely.
But, that makes me wonder, what if this space breeding thing really takes off?
Yeah.
Could it actually become a source of tension instead of cooperation?
That's a good point. Any new technology can be, a bit of a double-edged sword.
How so?
Just imagine, what if, one country suddenly has way better crops because of this.
Because of space breeding.
Yeah, it could create all sorts of imbalances, you know.
Like what?
One country could dominate food production, others might become dependent on them for seeds.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
So we need to talk about these things.
Yeah.
Now. Set up some rules, make sure everyone benefits.
So that the technology is used responsibly.
Exactly. We don't want the benefits to just help a few.
Yeah.
Right.
Makes sense.
Imagine a country develops crops, specifically for their climate.
Using space breeding.
Yeah. They'd have a big advantage in the global food market.
That's true.
It raises questions about fair trade. What about food security for poorer countries? What about bioengineered crops made for specific places? It gets complicated.
It does. It's a lot to think about.
It is, but we need to start thinking about these things now,
To avoid problems later on.
Right. This is what happens with new technology. There are always these bigger questions, these ethical and social things.
It's not just about the science.
Nope, not at all. We can't just focus on the cool stuff. We got to consider the downsides too.
Absolutely.
So we're not just talking about changing how we grow food. It could change society.
That's deep.
We have to decide what kind of future we want to build, with this tech.
It's a lot of responsibility.
And these questions become even more important when we think about biodiversity.
Biodiversity, okay.
Imagine a future where there are only a few super high-yield crops, the ones made with space breeding.
Taking over everything.
And the older, traditional crops start to disappear.
That would be a shame.
Right. We'd lose so much diversity, all for the sake of more food in the short term.
Short-term gains, long-term losses.
Exactly. That's often the dilemma with new tech. Got to weigh the good and the bad, make sure we're not hurting ourselves in the long run.
So how do we do that?
We need to plan ahead, think things through carefully.
Right. Anticipate those challenges.
Yep. And come up with some guidelines for using this tech responsibly.
Seems like international cooperation would be key there.
Absolutely. We need global standards for this stuff, like we have for space exploration or nuclear weapons.
Wow. So we need to have a global conversation about, the ethics of space food.
Exactly. And maybe even some international rules and regulations.
To make sure this benefits everyone.
Right. Not just a select few.
Okay, we've talked about the potential downsides, but let's not forget about the positive stuff, too.
Oh, yeah. The potential here is huge, especially for those parts of the world facing food shortages or, dealing with the effects of climate change.
Right, where it's already a struggle to grow enough food.
Imagine crops that can handle droughts or ones that are resistant to those diseases, wiping out crops in developing countries.
This could be a lifesaver.
Literally. And it's not just about quantity, it's about quality, too.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about earlier.
What if we could make staple crops more nutritious?
That would be huge.
Imagine rice with more vitamin A or beans with more iron.
Wow, that could really help people.
Especially those dealing with malnutrition.
So it's not just about more food, it's about better food.
Exactly. And don't forget about the economic side of things.
Oh, right. We haven't talked about that.
This could create whole new industries, jobs in research, seed production.
It could boost local economies, give farmers an advantage.
It's about people, too, not just science and technology.
It's about making life better for everyone.
Exactly. Space breeding could be a big step forward, especially for those who need it most.
It's an amazing thought.
It is. It's it's almost like science fiction, but it's happening now.
It is, but it's not all sunshine and roses, right?
Well, we got to be realistic. This technology is still new.
Right.
There are things we don't know yet, and it's not a magic solution.
We can't just, launch all our problems into space and hope for the best.
Haha, no, not quite.
We still need to do the work here on Earth.
Exactly. We need to keep working on other solutions, things like crop diversity, soil health, managing water resources.
It's a whole system.
But space breeding could be a powerful part of that system.
Agreed.
But, like any powerful tool, they got to use it carefully. Think about the ethical stuff, the environmental stuff.
We have to be responsible.
Exactly.
We've covered a lot of ground today. The science, the potential, the challenges.
Yeah, it's been a great discussion.
This field is full of possibilities.
It is. And as China keeps pushing forward and other countries get involved, things are only going to get more exciting.
It's a space race, but in a good way.
I like that.
So let's focus back on Shijian-19 for a moment. What can we learn from this specific mission?
Well, I think Shijian-19 is important for a few reasons.
Okay.
First, it shows just how advanced China's technology is getting.
Yeah, that reusable satellite was pretty impressive.
It was. This is the first time they used it. It shows they're serious about making space exploration more affordable, more sustainable.
So it's not just about the seeds, it's about how they got there.
You got it. Shijian-19 is a marvel of engineering. It opens doors for more ambitious missions in the future.
More space seeds.
Possibly.
Yeah.
And we've already talked about the collaboration. That's huge.
Bringing countries together.
Exactly. They were willing to share their knowledge, work together on this problem. It shows that space breeding could actually bring people together.
Instead of dividing them.
Yeah. Science can do that. Break down barriers.
It's a powerful thing.
It is. But let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about the big picture, but what about the everyday folks?
You mean like the farmers, the people who eat this food?
Exactly. What does all this mean for them? That's the real question, right? Yeah, it's about getting down to, the practical stuff.
Right, the real world impact.
Exactly. For farmers, well, this could mean crops that are tougher.
Tougher.
Yeah, more resilient, better yields, maybe even more profitable.
Less risk, more reward.
You got it. And that's got to be appealing, right?
Especially with all the challenges farmers face.
Exactly. Think about a wheat that can handle a drought or rice that can fight off some, nasty disease.
That could be a game changer.
Could. Especially for those just trying to get by.
And for us, the people eating this food, what changes could we see?
Well, the most obvious one is more food security.
Food for everyone.
More resilient crops,
Right.
better yields. That means more food to go around.
Especially with climate change and all that.
Right. It's a
Yeah.
big concern.
But what about, the quality of the food? Would it taste different? Would it be safe?
That's where all those tests and regulations come in.
Right.
These crops would have to go through the same process as any new variety, before they end up on our plates.
To make sure they're safe.
Exactly. As for the taste, well, that depends on the crop, what traits they focused on.
So no, space melons with a weird aftertaste.
Uh-huh.
Eh.
Probably not. But, we could see some cool new flavors.
Like what?
Maybe a sweeter strawberry, a juicier tomato.
A more aromatic basil, perhaps?
Now you're talking. Space basil on pizza. I like it. But seriously, I think the most exciting possibility is improving the nutritional content.
You mentioned that earlier.
Yeah. Imagine rice with extra vitamin A or beans packed with iron,
That could really help people?
especially in places where malnutrition is a problem.
So it's not just about quantity, it's about making the food more nutritious.
Exactly. And there are the economic benefits, too.
Right. New jobs, new industries.
Research, seed production, it could really boost those rural economies.
By giving farmers a leg up.
Exactly. It's not just about the tech. It's about the people who benefit from it.
The ripple effects.
Benefits for farmers, benefits for consumers, potential for economic growth. It's pretty amazing.
It does sound amazing. So what's the catch?
Well, we got to be realistic. This is still a young technology.
Right.
There's a lot we don't know, and it's not a fix for everything.
We can't just rely on space to solve all our food problems.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We still need to work on all those other solutions, like I said before, crop diversity, soil health, water management.
It's all connected.
It is. But space breeding can be a really valuable tool.
A powerful one.
And like with any powerful tool, we got to be careful. Think about the ethics, the environmental impact.
Use it wisely.
Exactly.
Well, this has been an incredible conversation. We've learned so much about the science, the potential, and the challenges of this whole field.
It's been a pleasure.
It really feels like there's so much potential here.
Absolutely. And it's moving fast, with China pushing the boundaries and other countries joining in. Who knows what we'll see in the future?
It's exciting to think about. So what's the one thing we want our listeners to take away from this?
I think the most important thing is to stay curious, keep learning about this stuff, and, talk about it, have those conversations.
Because it affects everyone.
Exactly. The future of food, it's something we all share, and we all have a role to play in shaping it.
I love that. Well said. Who knows? Maybe someday we'll all be eating salads made with space lettuce grown right here on Earth. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone.
I was pleasantly surprised by a few things about that audio overview. Firstly, the voices are nice to listen to, and I'm really picky about things like that. It's certainly an engaging conversation, although I found it a bit repetitive in places and perhaps a bit light on actual details. The kind of conversation you might have in the pub rather than with an expert on space plants. And, as far as I can tell, it hasn't made any errors. That said, it highlights some things I wouldn't have included, and indeed it goes beyond the supplied information when it's talking about the ethical considerations. I asked NotebookLM which source contained that information, and it said that the sources do not directly address ethical considerations related to this practice. It added that to provide some additional context that is not found in the sources, it's important to acknowledge that emerging technologies, especially those with potential environmental and societal impacts, often raise ethical questions. It raises a good point because generative AI is an emerging technology, and when we're using it, we do have to bear in mind the ethical considerations. Large language models are being fed on people's work without their permission, and the environmental burden of these systems, not least their power and water usage, is considerable. I asked our mission specialist for this episode what it would choose as its fantasy space plant, and it selected Highland barley. It said that, as a crop that thrives in the challenging conditions of the Tibetan Plateau, its inherent resilience suggests that it could potentially adapt to the demanding environment for spacecraft and even a future off-world settlement. Having such a nutrient-rich staple would be essential for a long-duration space mission where dietary variety is limited, it said, before touching on the potential for it to be improved by space breeding. It added that the act of cultivating a plant, even in a highly controlled environment, could have profound psychological benefits for the crew, fostering a sense of purpose and connection to nature. And it wrapped up by listing some of the other species launched on Shijian-19, such as rapeseed, rice, wheat, corn and beans, suggesting that while they all have valuable traits, for a deep space mission where resilience and adaptability are paramount, Highland barley emerges as the top contender. So what did you think? I'd really like to know how you felt about listening to two robots chat about space plants, whether you think NotebookLM has nailed the topic, and whether it was more interesting than just listening to me blather on. I'm adding the sources I uploaded to NotebookLM in the show notes, and if you're interested, I can give you access to the notebook itself so you can ask it your own questions. You can email me at earth@spacebotany.uk, leave a comment on the website, which is theyoungconventionalgardener.com, or come and find me on LinkedIn or Blue Sky. That's it for this episode, so I'll hand you back to Mission Control. Capcom, to prove you're not an AI, why don't you tell us one of your cracking jokes?
Orbital Gardens, this is Mission Control, confirming termination of your signal. I've got a joke for you. Why is Yoda so good at gardening? Because he has a green thumb. Mission Control out.